I'm Duncan McLeod, and this is the TechCentral Show. The show is brought to you today by MTN Business. Visit mtnbusiness.co.za to learn more about their products and solutions. And we thank them for partnering with the show to bring you these great interviews. Our guest today is Blake Raubenheimer, omnichannel executive at the Spar Group. It's a position he's held since 2021. And prior to that, he held executive positions at companies including Unilever and Mass Discounters. Blake is leading the omnichannel function at Spar Group during a fascinating period of change in the South African retail industry as consumers increasingly turn to on-demand grocery delivery services and e-commerce apps and websites, showing the country is quickly adopting digital channels for even the most basic shopping needs. Blake, welcome to the show. It's good to see you, and thanks for making the time.
Thank you. Good to be with you.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Now, there is a perception, Blake, that Spar is perhaps coming from a bit behind in the on-demand delivery market, a space I think that it's fair to say was pioneered by Checkers Sixty60. But you are fighting back, as are other retailers. Tell us a bit about where you are in this on-delivery game as a group and what your plans are.
Yeah, thanks. I think we did start late. Certainly Shoprite pioneered with Sixty60, and the timing was really good for them through the COVID pandemic. I think our business model is quite different to a corporate retail model. So an independent retail model, we had to build something that was unique and something that was fit for purpose for our operating model.
Just explain that operating model for those who don't know. You're not this big corporate group. You've got managed stores.
Yeah, so every Spar or top store is owned by an independent entrepreneur. So I guess the closest thing to the model that one could see would be a franchise type model. It's not a franchise model. It's an independent model where these are young independent entrepreneurs, generally family businesses, and they operate quite differently from a corporate retail model where there's a store manager who kind of locks up at the end of the day. Okay. So very invested retailers, business people, often have other businesses outside of Spar, but really driven and passionate individuals.
Does Spar Group own any of its own stores at all, or are they all?
We do own a small batch of corporate stores. It's not our intention to own corporate stores and run corporate stores. Generally, it's stores that are struggling or there's been ownership changes. We'll take over those stores, bring them back into line, hopefully, and pass them back on or bring through new retailers. Okay.
Sorry, I interrupted you. You were telling me about your plans in the on-delivery space. You've got Spar2U. You've built this platform. How's it being received by the market so far? And what do you still need to do?
Yeah, we're good. We're growing nicely. We're growing at about 174%.
Wow. Okay.
On top of, obviously, it's off a smaller base than some of the other retailers.
Sure.
But like I say, we've had to build a model that's fit for purpose for us. And that means that every store has a different catalog. Every store has different pricing. As a customer, you get to choose which Spar or top store you want to shop at. So we don't deliver out of the nearest closest store or the store with the best range for your order. It's specific to a store. Ranges are quite unique oftentimes. So we're trying to amplify the uniqueness of your local Spar. Often have product that you can only get at your local Spar, whether it's milk tarts or Cook Sisters or pancakes. So we had to build a model that suited that. And it did take us maybe a bit longer than we would have liked. But we're certainly growing nicely. And yeah, I think it's table stakes right now. You have to be in the on-demand game. But we're making some good headway.
Okay. So what was involved from an IT perspective in getting all of those stores to work through the Spar2U platform? It must have been logistically quite a challenge.
Yeah, I won't go into the gory details of our back end, but it is quite complicated. There's lots of middleware, lots of different layers involved. We are trying to simplify that. So we're in a process of simplifying that. But really just trying to build a front end that is really customers enjoy. We've obviously had to try and keep up with the competitor set.
Yeah.
But we're also trying to build on our uniqueness. We don't just want to go head on head from a customer value proposition against the likes of Sixty60, ASAP and Dash. We want to make Spar2U unique to what Spar is.
Okay. So obviously, I mean, consumers have probably tried a number of these on-delivery services already. Some may, in fact, be quite happy with the on-demand app that they're currently using. How are you going to convince customers, first of all, to try Spar2U and secondly, to stick with it?
Yeah, there's different levers and different mechanisms that we use for that. Obviously, getting people to switch if they're quite entrenched in using a 6060, for instance, is a challenge. And like I say, for us, it's about amplifying our value proposition versus taking them head on from a speed or cost perspective. And we're slowly starting to do that. Our Spar stores are quite plugged into the communities that they serve. And whether that's through promotions or kind of personalization, that's the kind of route we're taking. I think customers at the moment are very aware of pricing, so promotions do work. The challenge for us is getting them to stick. So once they shop with Spar2U, getting them to stay with Spar2U. And that's a challenge that I guess any business faces right now. But
yeah, sure. But in the short term, is that sounds like a feasible option for Spar, actually aggressively discounting on some groceries to get consumers in and using the service?
It is. We obviously have to be careful and manage our margins accordingly. Like I say, our model is quite different. So there's ways and means of us going about doing that. But again, I think different stores react differently to these types of promotions. We're quite strong in some of the kind of peri-urban, more rural areas where e-commerce or on-demand certainly hasn't been that entrenched yet.
So is that because the other guys aren't there? Or because
so where our Spar stores have a strong foothold in the communities. So there's a lot of white space for us up front. Some of our better Spar2U stores are in those areas.
Okay.
And then I guess in the highly urbanized zones is where we need to challenge hard.
You mentioned the logistics and the technical complexity involved in managing all the back end around this. Now, it's been very highly publicized that you had a big issue with an ERP implementation over the last few years. Did that play a factor in your ability to roll out Spar2U, or was that unrelated to this project?
No, the SAP project is unrelated. So we operate quite separately from that.
That was very much related to your KZN distribution
center. Yes, there will be master data implications down the line, and we've had to build master data processes that are, again, fit for purpose for the Spar operating model. So our retailers can list products in their own stores. They don't have to procure goods from ourselves. So again, we've had to build a library, make sure that an apple in one store is the same item code as the apple in another store. So it has had its challenges, but we've mapped and built a library that's fit for Spar2U, and that's actually helped us on our SAP journey in terms of where we're going from an ERP perspective. But it is something that our model it brings challenges, but we've worked around those.
Now, you head of omnichannel for Spar Group. How do you see the omnichannel environment evolving in the coming years, and how important do you think on demand is going to be in retail grocery in South Africa? I mean, it's obviously there is a demand for it, and we see the delivery bikes all over the roads every day, not always driving the best. But how important is this going to become in the retail mix in South Africa, say 5-10 years from now?
Yeah, look, like I said before, I think it's table stakes right now, being in on-demand. I don't think that's going to change. If we see how the market's growing, all of the competitor sets are growing quite significantly. If anything, I think there may be nuances, from a application perspective. So how do you differentiate your application to your competitors? Is there uniqueness that you can offer versus the others? And then potentially on the last mile as well. And what does that look like relative to the competitors? We have a different business model, and we've had to build our last mile accordingly. So we've never wanted to own the last mile. We have trusted partners that we've partnered with in that regard. But again, like I say, we were the first to foray into township deliveries, some of the rural areas. And like I say, some of our better stores are actually in those zones. So
it's interesting because you don't necessarily expect rural areas to be the ones to be adopting e-commerce and digital platforms. What do you think is driving that?
I think every customer wants the same offering of convenience, and I think convenience got flipped on its head. I think if we're honest with ourselves, the Spar model was built on convenience, and with Sixty60 launching end of 2019, that really did flip convenience on its head. So we've had to have a good hard look at our strategy and adapt accordingly. But going back to your omni-channel question, I guess data has become such a critical part of how a business operates now, and making sure that you're getting the right insights out of that data. So our loyalty program is really important to us. Understanding our customer behavior, how our shoppers are shopping, where they're shopping, how they're shopping, what products they want, price sensitivities, and all of those things. So I think getting your basics right is still the most important thing. I think there's a lot of talk around artificial intelligence and how that's changing the retail game.
I was going to ask if AI is playing a role at all. It's in Spar at the moment, and how you see
it's the big buzzword. Look, to be honest with you, AI models have been entrenched for quite some time on forecasting and in merchandise planning, price elasticities. So it's not new to retail, but I think the application of AI is changing. I think from a customer support perspective, from a search perspective on e-commerce. So it definitely has a role to play. And I think it's a bit of a level playing field right now, but there's a small window that we have where everyone's going to be on a level playing field. And it's how you leverage that that's practical for your business and your value proposition. So we're looking at some cool ways of leveraging AI. I'm not going to give away too much in terms of what we're doing there, but certainly from a forecasting and planning perspective, we're using it day to day. From an e-commerce perspective, we will be using it more and more in the months ahead.
Now, you mentioned that your logistics platform, you don't run that yourself. You've outsourced that to trusted third parties.
Yeah.
Is there a risk in that, not running it in-house? You must have balanced whether to do this in-house or to outsource it to a third party. What was the thinking around that?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, the last mile is a game of scale, and you need to be doing the volumes if you're going to be owning it fully yourself. It's an expensive game, and I think if there's anyone who hasn't paid the school fees on last mile, I'd be shocked. So, as you know, some of our competitors have in-housed. We feel like with our business model, a kind of flexible, elastic model is more suitable. And that's the route we've chosen. And we've chosen to have kind of a multi-partner approach in terms of leveraging gig economy. And that won't change. We have a strategic partnership with Uber, so on both Uber Eats and Uber Direct. As well as others. So in the township model, for instance, we've partnered with Custody, Delivery, Cuspeed, and we feel like those players know their communities, they operate in those communities, and they're best placed to run last mile for us. So we certainly don't have all the answers in that space, and we're trying to work with companies, that are aligned to our values and the way that we work and do business, as well as being really entrenched in their communities like most of our Spar stores are.
And you're finding it's working quite well working with third parties to do this?
It's working well. It's new to us, I think, as a business, but we've certainly done the hard yards. I think it's always going to evolve. Our tech stack is strong, and I think tech plays a big role in terms of how you're operating your transport management systems, your driver apps. So plugging into that is, I guess, the part that requires a little bit of work, but we're happy as it stands right now.
So, Blake, I imagine, particularly in the township economy and more the rural areas, there's a lot of bulk buying that goes on as well. Are you seeing communities buying in bulk using the app and then distributing it in the community?
Yeah, we are seeing that. So a lot of our stores, I guess, shopper behavior is slightly nuanced, township being one, and in the rural areas, a store like Underberg. We don't necessarily have scooters or bikes to deliver in those areas. We're delivering in vans or even Miller vans. Yes, what we're seeing is almost a mini Stockfell type model where it's month-end, families are banding together, buying almost in a buying group, and sharing that. So a lot of learnings coming out of those areas. And obviously it's not purely on demand in some of our rural stores. So again, using the Underberg example, that store will deliver almost doing a milk run in a van and right up to almost a 50-kilometer radius, where obviously in the urban areas we generally work off a 7 to 10-kilometer radius.
Okay. There seems to be a growing opposition, certainly amongst some South Africans, to the delivery bikes. They certainly seem to be a bit of a menace on the road. And I know that whenever I order something from one of these grocery delivery services, the bike arrives and there's a cloud of pollution that comes with it. Are you doing any work on that side of things to try and improve the safety of the riders and other road users, and also perhaps, like one or two of the players in this market are starting to look at, moving perhaps to electric delivery vehicles?
Yeah, for sure. I definitely think it's something that will become more regulated. You would have seen in the news, there's been a lot in the news recently around regulations, increasing regulations. Certainly not ideal as it stands right now. Mm-hmm. We've been quite intentional around two things. One is electric. So we've always said we want hopefully about 25% of our fleet to be electric. That's come with some school fees in terms of the reliability of vehicles.
So you've been testing it already?
We have, right from inception.
Okay.
So again, some learnings there just in terms of mechanicals and making sure that those vehicles are as efficient as they can be.
What were the issues with them?
Just the electric vehicles, I don't think are quite as hardy as the petrol.
They could break down.
The bikes, yeah. So
okay.
Breakdowns, batteries, all of those things. A lot of the vehicles are self-charging, so not as reliable. And this is obviously off a few examples. It's not across the board, but reliability seems to be a challenge on some of the electric vehicles. But it's still definitely our intention to move that in that direction. And then secondly is around employing locals and employing females. So we've been intentional about trying to make sure that the majority of our drivers are employed in the communities that they serve. Again, going back to our Spar model and our kind of strategic imperatives, really to build into the communities where our Spar stores operate. A lot of we have different models on last mile. One of those is retailer-owned assets. So not all of our drivers and bikes are with a 4PL or 3PL partner. A lot of the retailers are doing their own deliveries, especially in the areas where there's no coverage. And again, those are people that have worked in the store that have been specifically trained. So slightly different to the corporate retail model.
Now, I must ask about Spar Mobile. That was announced not long ago now. It's an MVNO, Mobile Virtual Network Operator, I think launched in partnership with MTN. Is that right? Yeah,
we're working with an MVNE, but we're running off the MTN rails.
Network. Yeah. Okay. Now, I was in my local Spar the other day and was walking along the aisle. I needed to buy some rice. And I was surprised to see a little note under the rice. The rice was on special, but underneath it said, if you buy this rice and swipe your card, you will get 100 megabytes of free data with this bag of rice. That's a very interesting strategy. And I thought a very clever way of getting the Spar SIM into people's phones. I take it that's the strategy. But maybe just talk us through why Spar has launched an MVNO and what you're hoping to achieve with it.
Look, I think all the retailers have started to play there. Between the retailers and the banks, there's quite an interesting evolution going on. The banks want to become retailers. The retailers want to become banks. We're competing in value-added services and financial services. But it's certainly something that we're really excited about. We've had some really good traction in the first 8 weeks. But yes, our value proposition is very much tied to grocery and to our Spar Rewards loyalty program. Data and airtime is a currency. And really, it's a promotional mechanic that we can use as opposed to just dropping prices. So how can we leverage data and airtime as a promotional mechanic?
And ultimately, I imagine the goal is to either to get customers to use Spar2U or to walk into a Spar store because they know they may get data if they go shopping.
It's driving feet and hopefully driving basket size, and hopefully customers are choosing Spar as opposed to another retailer. And it's obviously an ongoing revenue opportunity for our retailers. And it's important, grocery retail margins are thin, as we know. So ongoing revenue models are certainly something that we're looking at. So both MVNO and some of the adjacent products and services like insurance are something that we're very much playing into. And we see it as a good opportunity for our retailers to have some ongoing revenue.
Okay, so it's actually devolved down to the retail store level. It's not something that Spar Group manages entirely centrally.
Every SIM is attributed to a store.
Okay.
And that store earns ongoing revenue if that shopper tops up at both their store or any other store in the network. Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Now, I know we've touched on AI, Blake, but just lastly, what are some of the other technologies that are coming down the line? What are some of the things, without giving the game away, of course, what are some of the things that Spar is excited about that technology is going to allow it to do going forward that is really going to change the retail game?
I think AI definitely is not going away. Like I said, I think there's a small window of opportunity to leverage it and make it practical for your use case and your value proposition. So things like AI assistants in-app, putting together shopping baskets, building recipes for shoppers, making search easier in-app. Those are all things that we're very much working on. And then from a commerce engine perspective, I think we've always worked on a headless commerce stack. So in terms of our back end, it's quite flexible and agile. And as you know, we've had some challenges around our ERP and our journey in that regard. So we're not reliant on that, thankfully. So we're building quickly and it gives us the opportunity to be flexible, specifically with regards to our operating model, which requires that. So there's some interesting things coming on the commerce side as well. And then really for us, it's about building one single app. So right now we have the Spar2U app, we have the Spar mobile app. We want to bring all of those together into one place. And obviously leveraging our other banners. So we have a pharmacy business, a Spar Health business, which is growing substantially. I've
noticed you've been snapping up pharmacies all over the place.
Yeah, so that's something that we certainly are bringing into Spar2U. It sits nicely as an adjacency to grocery. Our Build It business is slightly different. So the Build It to You app is being piloted currently, but that's more of a B2B play. But there's some interesting things going on there, and we feel quite unique in that market. And then obviously our Tops business is very much part of the 2U business, and we see that as a massive growth opportunity. Certainly from the baskets that we're seeing at the moment, liquor's a big part of that.
South Africans do love their liquor, it seems.
Indeed.
Blake Raubenheimer is omnichannel executive at Spar Group. This has been a great conversation, and it's going to be fascinating to see how this market plays out in the coming years. It's certainly very competitive, very dynamic, and certainly an interesting space to keep an eye on. So thank you for sharing your insights and what's happening at the Spar Group. Much appreciated.
Thank you so much, Duncan. Thanks for having me.